Okay, I should be live on
You're
Rumble,
live now.
Instagram, and on YouTube. So, everyone out there, hello. I'm going to check the Rumble and see if it's on there. Rumble is the only platform where I am monetized. So, if you want to leave a rant or something, that would be awesome. Let's see. Should be playing.
You're good on YouTube.
Yep, the Rumble chat doesn't show up, so I was pulling it up on here, and I can click back and forth with the Instagram and check it out if anybody wants to leave a comment or anything. I see Jan and South Texas AR guy are on there, so welcome. Also, happy Father's Day to all the fathers. I was going to say something else. I'm going to say happy Father's Day, all you mothers. But, yeah. Um, that's something my mom would say. But yeah, I get my mouth from my mom. Anyways, we're on Rumble, we're on Instagram. The comments on Instagram, I have to click back and forth to see. And I think it's behind just a little bit over here. It shows when people have joined. Hi, Chasing Ghosts. Well, hello, South Texas AR guy. And I don't know, I was gonna go live for a while. I have some videos that are filmed. Well, I'm going to post probably a couple of my lives without the signal thing throughout the week, and I've got another video or two that's filmed to put out, but it's going to be raining. So, and tomorrow I've got to head to New Orleans and come back. So I'll probably be in my cage tomorrow. And yeah, my stomach's feeling weird. My stomach's not stretched out that much, so it's kind of, it shrunk with everything that happened last week. I'm still having problems trying
Rough
to
week.
eat.
Yeah, rough week for you.
Oh yeah, rough week, definitely. So, get
I,
home. Hmm?
I was gonna ask you about last week. Was you able to do that through workman's comp with it being chemical burn and the heat exhaustion for the doctor visit?
Well, the chemical burn thing, they looked at it and it ended up not being too bad. You can not really tell now on my arm. It's got a good chemical peel, basically. And as far as the heat exhaustion, I went to the ER, and I don't think anyone gave a damn. So I don't. That didn't go through workman's comp or any of that stuff. And um,
I mean, being a company driver, you should they should have that as an uh, option for you.
yeah, they should. And I told the. Where did this thing go? Okay, clear out whatever this new tab is. There we go. See, like your riding videos on YouTube look awesome. Thank you, South Texas AR guy. Um, no, I went on the weekend when I was off, anyways, and because I'd woke up and it's kind of a combination of everything, and the heat exhaustion caused another problem, which ended up with like 103 fever, and that's why I ended up going. And I'm still taking antibiotics and stuff for that. And now I just got to the point because, we're not talking one day. We're
Right.
talking every day for 2 weeks.
That's why I was
And
thinking it could be a workman's comp related issue for
yeah,
the
well, it
situation you was
is, but
under
it
with
wasn't,
no AC.
yeah, it wasn't filed that way. And, it's so hot you can't eat. And so now it's like your stomach shrinking. It's like having stomach surgery, but you didn't have surgery. And that final day, I couldn't drink I couldn't drink water or anything without basically puking it up. And that's what got real bad. And that's the point where I stopped sweating, I stopped anything else. And luckily I got cooled off and stuff. But at that point, I'm like, I can't keep doing this. They got the AC fixed in that truck finally.
The next stages would have been very, very detrimental.
Yeah, because the next stages would have been heat stroke.
I mean, been through enough already, girl.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's also too. I've never had desk job or anything like that, and you get everything done. The job has to be done. The load has to get there by hook or by crook. I mean, you know the realities of it. They took our coloring books away, but there's still ways to do things with the computer log, and you're splitting your hours. You're doing every little trick that you can. You're turning that 14 hours into 17, 18, 19. And I work for a small company. So it's kind of like when I was an owner operator too. There was no one else to do my job. And if I had to, stop and go to the hospital or anything like that, the load still had to be delivered. And I would have to pay someone. The way it would end up is the person that I pay would get more money for delivering the load than I even booked the load for. Because like when I was with Landstar, say you booked a load for $5,000. And the rates most of them are going to be like $5,000. You're going to get 65% of 98% on that $5,000. Okay. And that 2% goes to a lawsuit to the government to pay some old workers. I don't know when that's ever going to be finished paying out. But if anybody out there is with Landstar, you'll know exactly what I mean. And now the person that recovers your load and goes and delivers it, they're going to pay them however much amount of money that they need to pay them. And it's probably going to be more than,
For the inconvenience fees and the
right, they're
covering.
They're probably going
to extra. Yeah.
You may have only took that load 200 miles, but they're going to go and they're going to post it for like $5,500 instead of $5,000. Or let's say even they just posted the same price, $5,000. Where they're getting it because that's a recovery. Yeah, they're not getting 65%. They're getting 100% of 98%. So even if they posted the same price, they're making more off that load than you even booked it for, and you have to pay them.
Years back when I got my first truck, I was leased to a port dredge company, and they're actually based. I think they actually started their home offices in Houston. Is TriStar Freight. They had an office in Jacksonville, Florida, and that's the office I run out of back when I had my first truck. And it was insane the amount of chargebacks they would give me if I had to set a load down and do something different. They would actually charge me back whatever the next driver picked the load up for. I would actually have to pay the difference in what I had contracted the rate for.
Right. There's just a lot of.
I would have made. Yeah. Not only did I lose out on what I would have made on that drayage, whatever the overage was from my contract or whatever they took it for, they would actually charge me back for that. So I would actually have to supplement the rate change.
Right. So that's kind of the same thing there. And it costs you too much money. And even a lot of truck drivers don't understand that when it comes to being an owner-operator. Because Most people that start in trucking aren't going to make it 6 months. As company driver, whatever. And most of them that make it a year aren't going to make it 2 or 3. There's a handful of them, say a class of 100 going through training school. You take 5 of those classes and you might have one that's there after 5 years. And that's just the way it is. It's not just a different job, it's a completely different lifestyle. And a lot of them, especially, the big
And an unfortunate truth is nowadays, even a lot of the mega carriers are catering to the loudest prospect or the loudest applicant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's like why we can't find what we need.
Yeah. Yep.
The truck stops have gone to using these apps and stuff for ordering and people saying what they like and all that. Well, the people who know what they're doing are not using the apps. We're getting in, getting out, and there's things that we're accustomed to having at the fuel island we can grab and we can go, and they're no longer there. And there's all this bullshit that we don't need because they're using these.
People sitting on the fuel island finishing their 30-minute breaks and crap and taking showers and this, that, and other just because I don't have to move because it's my valuable time.
Yeah, and then there's the flip side of that too. Because there's nobody at the fuel island. I'm sitting there, I'm doing my paperwork before I take off. And this guy comes out there and says, my boss says you have to leave. You got to sit there. I'm like, I just fueled up. I haven't been in my truck 5 minutes. I'm fixing to leave. Well, you got to leave. You got to do this. And you wouldn't like the words that I told him. I'm like, I'm not blocking anything. There's no one here. But yeah, you'll have people, they take their break at the fuel island, which, okay, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, there is no parking. There is no anything. Just be aware that you're probably going to have to crawl that truck at 3 miles an hour or something to keep from tripping your logbook. And you might have to circle around just to let people through the fuel island. The computer logs and all that. So everybody knows what you're doing, but that guy behind you still got to move. He's still got to go. She's still got to go.
And
right.
The ELD companies are getting they're picking up on that too. And now a lot of these megas are, as soon as you push in the buttons, the ELDs go active to driving.
That is the stupidest thing, because you have to be able to move that truck. You're on private property. DOT doesn't give a damn what you do on private property. Except now they just got the right to inspect us on private property.
Right. Well, another thing to that too, carriers that utilize ELD systems for one, like the carrier I'm leased to, they have certain rules that they add to the DOT regulations, like for a yard move, say instance. I can utilize my yard move as long as I'm at a shipper to load or a receiver to deliver. I cannot use yard move on a truck stop property, even though
which is just stupid.
Even though I'm on duty, not driving, I'm on private property, moving from the fuel island to a parking spot, for instance.
Yeah, and that's just crazy. Like one company, well, Landstar was getting that way before I left. I got Million Miler Award and stuff like that from them. And they're like, well, we showed movement on the trailer. Yeah, I was going to the fuel island. I'm on private property. Well, you got to show that as, man, fuck you. There's just, they get too asinine about shit. Now, where I'm at, they don't care as long as the load gets done. But then that's also got its own downside, too.
And the one drawback I have to the carrier I'm leased to, our safety director, he drove for this company for 22 years as an owner operator. Every truck that signs on to the carrier I'm with, we're all owner operators. We're almost 1,000 owner operators now.
Mm-hmm.
which is they have a really good set of. I mean, every contract carrier, every mega carrier, they all have their pros, they all have their cons, but I kind of can't. I can voice my opinion and voice my concerns to the safety director, but at the same time, he's been there, he's done that, he's paid his dues on the road, which is rare these days because you know yourself, a lot of times they'll hire kids out of college to look at a screen and read paragraph after paragraph out of a DOT regulation book that have never sat 1 minute behind the wheel.
And when I have a problem, it's like, I don't need to talk to you. I need to talk to your boss's boss. Just give me this person. Anyone who's reading off a checklist, I'm already past the point of talking to you. I can figure all that out for myself. But yeah, it's insane. And South Texas AR guy is over on Instagram talking about he had a cousin who was all into trucking and he liked it. And apparently what happened was he liked it until he got to going down a mountain in the wintertime. And I guess he ran into a situation that scared him. And he was scared of crashing. And we've all been there. Winter will make or break you as a driver. It's not for everyone. I've been in full-on slides going down a mountain with a load of methanol. I mean, the plus side of that is if you go off the side, there's no need for a funeral or anything because you're sort of already cremated and your ashes are spread. And, you know,
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, you don't have any more problems anymore.
Talk about going
But,
to glory.
Oh, yeah. Driving through absolute whiteout conditions. Like, we're not talking you can see the mile markers and stuff and you're scared trying to keep it between the bumps that you see on the side of the road. I'm talking like what is that? Between Susieville and Klamath Falls, like coming out of California and Oregon. You know what I'm talking about.
I ain't been out that way in years, but yeah.
And once I got the motor off the front of my trailer, I didn't have much need to go to California. But, you know, such whiteout, it looks like somebody spackled your windshield. You can't see your hood. You're trying to feel the road. And that's terrifying because you know if somebody's coming the other way, they're doing the same thing that you are. You know? There's going to be a head-on collision. Same with Sans.
One thing I learned the hard way about driving in snow and whiteout conditions and stuff, once the tracks disappear that you're trying to follow, it's time to stop. Mm-hmm. Once you don't see the slush off the wheels no more, once you don't see the slush coming off your wheels no more, it's time to stop.
Yeah, it's frozen.
And the best way to avoid it is plan ahead and you know, do a lot of, you know, if you're going into wintertime and you know you're going to be going into an area that's prone to snow drifts and real heavy conditions, you know, plan and prep ahead to anticipate having to be stuck in a truck somewhere for a day or two.
Yeah, my boss,
and a lot of our carriers don't do that anymore. They don't take the time to bring our drivers up to speed.
Well, yeah, when we learned how to drive, you got Randall McNally and a pickup number and a confirmation number for the delivery and 2 phone numbers, and you found a pay phone and you planned your trip, and there's all kinds of stuff. But there's also places that you're going where your plan is you know you're going to be in that weather, and you're trying to plan with the plows and everything else. It's not going to stop. You know, you're in Williston, North Dakota, and it's February, or you're up in Alberta, or, you know, it depends on where you are, but there's just points of you're going to have to drive in it. There's freak storms that pop up. Like, I was going over Cabbage one year, and it hadn't snowed in like 2 or 3 weeks, but the snow's still on the ground. And for those of you who don't know where Cabbage is, that's that big hill you drop off of on I-84 in Oregon.
And go down into Pendleton.
Yeah, go down to Pendleton. Right. And I like the older truck stop better than that new one.
Wow.
But Yeah.
Don't know what you're
But
talking about. Never been there.
this windstorm, we're talking 90 plus mile an hour winds, and it blew all the snow across the road. The state troopers getting blown sideways across the road. They throw chain law up. And a lot of these companies won't let their drivers throw chains. Well, the officer wasn't giving you a choice. He's like, you can't stay up here where that little scale chain up area is. He's like, you can't stay here. We will tow you down the hill. You will throw your chains and you will get down the hill. And you weren't making it down that hill without chains on. Bright sunshiny day, and that windstorm picked up. And, there's freak things like that happen. And that's another thing I don't understand. I can understand, okay, like, I got broke of throwing chains, like, throw them, take them off, throw them, take them off. I had a run from, I think it's Euro Fresh down in Wilcox, Arizona. And you'd run up 87 through Flagstaff, I think it's 87. And don't take that route over to 15, over by where that Walmart DC is, over that mountain if the road's bad, because you'll wish you hadn't. Just keep following it on up to 70. Either cut on over when you get to 15 or go over Soldier. And I'd start dropping off south of Salt Lake, and I'd end up in like Seattle. And the road was so bad. And I was over at, what was that truck stop? And I think it was like the Arrowhead. 82 in Washington. Anyways, I'm standing at a payphone. And this guy, tell him, hey, I'm going to be a couple hours late. I got chains on. I'm nearly getting blown off the road with my chains on. And he's screaming about how this is unacceptable. And I'm like...
In his nice, warm office.
Yeah. I left the payphone swinging. I went to the truck. I went to bed. I woke up and I had a Qualcomm in the truck. And I have all these messages and all this other shit. And I'm like, if I could take this load all the way back to Arizona, I would freaking do it. At that point, I had just had enough. And that's what broke me, of throwing chains like that. Now, I will still throw chains. But there's places that I go that once I get empty, I can't get out of there without chains. And the other thing is, if I do throw chains, like the road's that bad, when the road has been the absolute worst that I've ever seen, there was no way in hell you were ever throwing chains because you couldn't stop the truck to throw the chains. And there was no place to do it. But if chains touch my tires, the next spot that I see that I can park the truck, my truck is parking there. I'm not going past it. I'm not doing this chain up, chain off, chain up, chain off kind of thing. That's just not happening.
Absolutely.
I will use them to get to a safe place to park.
Got a couple of guests in YouTube.
Let me check this out over here. Vanessa Kitty, hello, how are you doing? Motobomb Virginia, how are you?
We're probably giving him flashbacks of his. We're probably giving him flashbacks of his truck driving days.
Yeah, I should have been a prostitute. Anything but a truck driver. But that goes with an old joke if you've ever heard it. But yeah, there's a certain point where you kind of feel like nobody gives a damn about you. You're just a truck driver. You're thrown away,
But that's why I'm glad we have our community, because those of us that's been in the game a while, we still have a place to come together and share our knowledge to these young whippersnappers. And hopefully one of them will hear it. And hopefully one of them will implement it. And hopefully they'll tell a friend.
Right, because what ends up...
It's not just about all the money these carriers are throwing at you to come in the door and get in a truck and go down the road. It's not just about making $100,000 your first year. You're not going to do it. It's all a pipe dream.
You'll be lucky to see much more in about 20. Your first year, while you're learning everything. Yeah, number one, it's more expensive to live out on the road. Everything costs more. You can't eat 3 meals a day in a truck stop. You will go broke. At modern prices, oh my God, you're spending over $100 a day on food if you do that. And the learning how to make money, learning your lanes, learning all that stuff, it takes a little while. It's one of the reasons why I think that you should not be allowed to train to buy a truck, which when I started driving, if you didn't have 5 years over the road, most would not talk to you about buying a truck. If you couldn't prove that you'd been out there for 5 years, you know, that used to kind of be a standard number. Hell, my uncle tried to go to work for CR England back in, I think, the 70s or the 80s. And because he couldn't prove he had 5 years over the road, they wouldn't hire him. And he laughs now when he sees their trucks because they turn into a training school. And
Growing up as a roadway brat, my mom's second husband, he was a union driver, and he worked for Roadway. He drove for Roadway Express. They had waiting lists for employment in the 70s and 80s, and even into the 90s.
But I don't think you should be able to train.
That's what I'm saying. The requirements were set at such a high bar. The standards were set industry wide. Don't matter what you were doing. And they say, they say that we were outlaws back then. Well, certain people ran like an outlaw. Some people didn't. It was mostly the smaller outfits and the independents. And
it's
a lot of it turned into what we have today, which is nothing but chaos. Hello, 2-4. Brother Trucker's in the house too.
we got a lot of truckers in here. Hello, Vanessa and 2-4 and Motobomb, everybody. Hello over on Rumble and on Instagram. But I also don't think you should be able to train unless you've had at least 5 years, because you're not even seasoned yet, really, until you've been out here, 5 years at least. You've been through all the seasons a few times. There's a learning curve that takes place in that first few years. And what we've ended up with is we have somebody who they thought they were going to make $100,000 a year. 10 years ago, they thought they were going to make $30,000, $40,000 their first year. They keep upping that for some reason. It's a very cutthroat industry to begin with. But they get out there, they probably got a wife and kids at home or what have you. They think they're going to be home a lot more than they are. They start to realize the reality of the situation there. And they're like, well, we'll help you out. We're going to put you in a lease truck. And you're going to get to run a few more miles. Yeah, and for those that don't know, a lease truck is just a half-ass company driver. That's all. They're transferring the taxes and the responsibility of that truck to one of their drivers that they run just like you were a company driver pretty much. And they can take that truck back at any time that they wish. Read your contracts. Now, if you do a lease truck, if you know what you're getting into and you're running it for that reason and you're taking the tax breaks and stuff, you're with a good company, I understand that. Or if you're leasing from, what's that company out of Illinois? Like where it's not from a company that you're driving for. It's a separate place. I know people that do that and they keep themselves in new trucks all the time. That's a totally different thing. But when you're leasing from like Stevens Transport, Swift, Warner, wherever, it's a no-win situation.
The driver's just absorbing the overhead of the truck for the company.
Basically.
You're a lease driver to them with their truck, but you're basically paying them to operate their equipment at the end of the day.
You're basically a 1099 company driver that's taking on all the everything. Just drive a company truck at that point. But what you have when he realizes, you can't make that much money in that lease truck like you thought he was, well, we're going to help you out. We're going to make a trainer out of you. So now you have somebody who's been driving maybe a little more than a year, trying to train someone who just started driving, and neither one of them have the common sense to drop their landing gear when they're trying to slide their fifth wheel. So you see them in the truck stop going just bam, 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 sliding it back and forth, instead of, drop your landing gear, get the pressure off of it, dump your airbags, let it slide forward a little, slide backwards, what hole you're going in. Neither one of them have been shown how to do something that simple. And the one's trying to train the other.
Years ago when I was actually a company driver for a food grade tanker organization. It's one of the largest food grade tanker companies in the world. In North America rather, in the States. And I spent a lot of my time making sure that I help the drivers learn how to budget themselves, how to diet, how to take care of their health, plus how to operate the equipment to where they learn to use the equipment as it's intended to save wear and tear on their body. Like you were saying, put the landing gear down, dump the airbags on the truck. If the trailer's equipped with airbags, dump the airbags on the trailer. Use the equipment.
Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. That way,
right.
You're setting yourself up for success instead of just not giving a new driver to that field or never pulled a tanker before.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to give them the wrong message. You don't want to set them up for failure. That was my train of thought when I was trying, because I went back to my days of, like you were talking about, if you didn't have 5 years experience of this, that, and the other. All my driving experience came from family farm before I got my CDL. I had nobody to verify my background. Luckily, I had a friend that had his own truck, and yeah, we pencil whipped it, and he stuck his neck out for me back in '93, and pencil whipped that I had experience and I had worked for him and this, that, and the other. And that unfortunately, that's a lot of the times that was a scenario that a lot of people used back then, and it still happens today.
Yeah, Sterling Will is saying they were a trainer at Sierra England. I was a trainer at Stevens a little over 20 years ago. And I already had my CDL before I went there, but I was in the position of kind of the same. I came off the farm. We had our trucks on the farm. My stepfather was with International Transport way back in the day. Ugly green and yellow cab overs. If you see one today, you'll know exactly where it was from. And, we had those, what are they, 2.5, 3 ton, something like that trucks. You got a 5-speed with a split axle. Take the sides off of it, haul hay, that sort of thing. And you learn to drive on those. And I go to construction companies, and that I'm doing like regional, doing railroad work and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I was hauling a 450 Cat yesterday. Why do I need to do all this crap? But when I went over the road, they're like, well, you've been local, you've been regional, even though I'd been driving longer than they had. So then they treat you like you're an idiot, and, you get your knocks in and taken care of. But I ended up very quickly being a trainer for them. And I was with that group of trainers that went over to a little company called JCT back before the DOT cracked down on them. Because we ran like hell. And there was a lawsuit over that because they thought somebody was poaching their drivers. And what it was they basically said, we can't fail the students. And a friend of mine had tried to fail this one chick, and they went out for what they call their Dumb and Dumber, and she nearly got a bunch of people killed. And we're just like, no, we're not. So they lost a lot of their experienced trainers over that. And of course, this is back in the days of loose leafs and shredding paper and rewriting history. And if you turned in 3,000 miles, you were home for the week and everything was catching up with you. So, yeah, we ran really hard when we went over to JCT. But, yeah, they wouldn't let us fail the students. And it's like some people do not need to drive.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate truth because I can relate to your sentiment and Sterling's comment there. When I was
Mm-hmm.
a driver trainer at that unsaid food grade tanker company, they realized after about 6 or 8 months that they needed to get me out of being a trainer because, well, for one, we were down. They pulled all the trainers in. Here's an example. They pulled all the trainers down to their headquarters in Lake Wales, Florida. If you want to put the pieces together, you can figure out which food grade tanker company I'm talking about. They pulled all of us trainers down there because they had a lot of drivers coming out of orientation and they had to get road tests done. One of the guys that I had to road test, we pull out of the gate, we turn to the right, we get to US 27, and that surge hits his trailer because he's having to stop at a red light. He thought he got rear-ended. It scared him so bad he popped
Every new driver.
He popped the brakes on the truck at the red light, got out, and walked back to the terminal and told him, I can't do this. I get in this driver's seat, go across the road, turn around, bring the truck back to the yard, and the orientation manager, when I get back in the office to check on the driver, the dude's already in HR trying to get himself a flight booked back home. And the orientation manager asked me, what did you do to that driver? I'm like, I took him on a road test. He got to this red light and he stopped and the surge hit the front of the trailer and it freaked him out. He set the brakes and he walked back and he said, I can't do this. And they're like, why didn't you try talking to him? I'm like, there was no talking to him. He'd already had it made up in his mind. It scared him to death. I said, wouldn't you rather find out now that people are cut, that some people are cut out for this and some people ain't? I mean, isn't that a part of, the orientation and training process? I mean, we can't pass everybody.
Just about every new driver we get, if they haven't pulled a tanker before, that's one of the first things they do. They're calling, somebody hit me, I don't know where they're at. Because, I mean, we don't have, they're single compartment bulk tanks. They don't have baffles in them. No, I'm not hauling milk, I'm hauling chemical. That's another thing. Yeah, these people, they're so convinced that the only tankers that don't have baffles are milk trucks. Bullshit. And the place where you were just talking about, that I used to have to go in there with a quarter tank of fuel because they loaded so heavy, is the only smell worse than when they're boiling down the blood at Tyson. Because you can find a meat packing plant just by the smell. You don't need directions. When they're boiling that juice down and the peels and everything. And for those that don't know, all your orange juice is concentrate. Yeah, all your orange juice is concentrate. All of it is. It's all like boiled down and reconstituted, and they make it the flavor of what you consider orange juice. And all of it is, unless you squeeze it at home. And they boil that stuff down, and it's like, oh God. That is the only thing that smells worse than that chicken plant. When they're doing that. You know the exact smell that I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, I don't want orange juice now. I don't want that. But we used to have to go in there, and we, low on fuel because of their contracts. And we had to haul the weight. Now, I picked up a load of chicken one time. I think it was out of Center or Carthage. This was back when I was pulling a reefer. And somebody forgot to put those plugs in the front of the trailer. And this year, or that year, is one of them where it got 20 below in like Cincinnati, Ohio. Places like that. And I'm looking at my suspension gauge. I come from a different school of drivers where you actually use your gauges. I don't care about all these idiot lights and flashing shit, and they beep too damn much. And my trailer kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. I'm like, what the hell? And of course, it's a pre-sealed, preloaded trailer. And so I'm trying to watch my fuel. I'm trying to watch the scales and all that stuff so I don't get a ticket. I get where I'm going, and we open the doors to unload it, and it looked like a snow cone inside the trailer. Because what it did with the temperature with the fresh meat inside the trailer, which I can't remember the exact temperatures, I think it was somewhere around 26, 28 degrees. And then the temperature outside, and with the humidity and everything, it turned the inside of my trailer into a snowblower. So all between the pallets, all between everything, it was just ice like a snow cone filling the whole trailer.
I, I I don't have a whole lot of experience with reefer trailers, and I mean I have, but I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, well,
I'm not a big fan of pulling the end dump right now either, but it pays the bills.
yeah, well, I was pulling a roll off yesterday, and I'll be on a roll off tomorrow. Oh, that's another thing. The company I'm with right now, they were having me train this guy to go out with new drivers so that he could run the roll off for them.
Hopefully he's picking up what you.
Trying to see their comments. There's a let's go. Here, taking vitamin C, whatever. Okay. But, I was telling him, because you're going out to the landfill. You're either dumping in a pit, in a solidification pit, which you've got to put the harness and all that stuff on, and you open the door on the back of them, you're going to get nasty stuff on you, and you tip it up and you dump it, or you're dumping product that most of the time is wanting to get stuck in the box. And you basically got a big dump truck at that point. You slide the box to the end, and the ground isn't necessarily solid. You're getting as level as you can, and you're trying to tell them stuff like this, where it's like, if you see this thing starting to tip, don't try to catch it. You don't know that driver. Stay out of the way. All right, and there's that point to where you get it up and it starts to slide out, and now you got to go forward, and everything slides out with it.
Yeah.
Don't get out of the way of the truck.
And I was going to tell you too, that's the worst case scenario to be tipping trailers up.
Mm-hmm.
Because even rolling forward, you may hit a soft spot with your rear axles.
Oh yeah, you can hit a soft spot and that thing goes down. What I was trying to tell him is, out of all of our equipment, that is the most likely one to get you killed. There are 2 people every year that die out there at the landfill, and they all die from the same thing, getting crushed. Something tips, something falls. Huh?
That's what I was gonna. I can add to that, because for a couple of years, just before I went to work hauling milk, I had went to work for a friend of mine that had heavy recovery trucks, and it was once a week we were going out to the landfill to pull trucks back together and ride them back up.
Mm-hmm.
And these were experienced, seasoned drivers that these trucks were turning over on. That's because you get in such a rush, and they let the landfill dictate what they do, where they unload, this, that, and other, and they don't take command and authority of their own equipment and say, hey, this is too unsafe. I cannot do this here. They get pressured by the customer to put it here. I want it there. Do it now. If you don't ever come back. And they put them in a dangerous scenario, a dangerous situation.
Right. And it may be solid when you raise that thing up,
Right.
But then 3 foot in front of it may not be, and it's going to go over. And you've also got the momentum when you get it swaying. It's up there in the air, and it's like it takes that dip, and you got that piece stuck up there in the top of the box, or the trailer that hasn't slid out yet, and you got extra weight up there, and it's just going over.
Like with my end dump, for instance, there's times we load rock and stuff, and gravel and this, that, and the other. That stuff's not uniform. It's not consistent. We can load it down the center of the trailer uniformly, but by the time we get to where we're going, it's going to shift and move around and spread out in the trailer. So it gets a little bit more level as it goes down the road. But however, we get to where our delivery point, and we're big safe. These owner operators at the carrier I'm at, we're big on safety. If we're not on flat even ground and we don't feel safe raising the trailer, we relay that to the customer. Hey, we need to find an alternate solution here, or we may have to send the load back if we can't unload the product here. Or you can't make a different arrangement for our unloading site, because for one, not so much the liability issue, but we don't want to do any equipment damage. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to make a bad situation worse, because there are times, even on flat even ground, when we're unloading rock and gravel, when that stuff's sliding back out of the trailer, it has a mind of its own. Rocks bounce against each other and they shift side to side as it's coming out, and that'll create a whole different scenario, even if you're in the right ideal conditions.
Oh yeah, it reminded me. You're talking about stuff shifting. I was picking up one time, and this is like 20 years ago, but I think it was pears. Might have been pears. It was some kind of fruit, and I was out by Ukiah, California. And it's one of the things, they're loading it on the floor. It's bulk product.
Sterling said I need to move my mic closer. I can't get it no closer without chewing on it.
Yeah, and I was too heavy on the nose, and there's nothing I could do about it, and they're not going to get in there and move it or anything. So what I ended up doing was I found an overpass, and I waited till I didn't see anybody coming. I back up, slam on the brakes, back up, slam on the brakes until I got enough of it to slide back. I think that was pears. Because then I want to say I took that to Fort Smith, Arkansas somewhere, like for baby food. But they'll put a board on the back of your trailer. And then they fill it with water. And then they float all the product out. I don't know how much good I did, slamming on the brakes and squishing all of it. But I wasn't going to make it there if I didn't, without getting a ticket. It's weird stuff like that. There's so much has changed over the years.
Case in point,
some's for the better, huh?
Yeah. Case in point, the load I got now, I posted a short yesterday of them loading it was at a CSX substation in the middle of nowhere, Gladstone, Virginia, yesterday, where they had just replaced a good set of a good long set of tracks, and they had a pile of what they call OTM. It's the tie plates and the straps and the
stuff I used to slide out with the backhoe. Yeah.
And they were loading me with that. Well, I get up into Charleston, West Virginia yesterday off of 64, where 77 South comes back onto 64, and this little old lady just merges right in and just pulls right in front of me, cuts right across the hash lines, and didn't even follow her lane on out. I saw her and I was slowing down, but when she come on out in front of me, I had to slam on brakes. What do you think all that metal did? It all shifted to the front of the trailer. I looked at my suspension gauge in my truck. It went from 52 to almost 100. So I had to go down the road, stop at the next rest area, and try to find a spot to where my trailer was downhill a little bit and try to slide it back. Well, that didn't work because the steel's too heavy. So I had to pull the mud flaps, dump the airbag trailers, put the trailer up in the air to enough to where I heard the stuff start sliding to the back, and had to put the trailer back down to get all that metal moved back to where I had my gauges about even again. That was the first time that's happened to me, is when the load's shifting like that. But it's the nature of the product. Luckily,
I used to be able to switch in a bridge crew.
So luckily it wasn't a load of rebar on a flatbed without a headache rack or something. That could have been really, really bad. We've all seen them videos.
Oh yeah. You got a bunch of projectiles back there trying to kill you.
So luckily I didn't become a statistic yesterday. I almost did.
Yeah. One of the worst loads for sliding, it's another reefer load. Be like 4x4 tubs that I used to pick up. You pick it up out of like Liberal, Kansas. You take it to Mexico, or you take it to like Murfreesboro, Tennessee, places like that. And it looks like the stuff that you scrape off the top of Spam. And it's all bloody and everything else. It's, the trimmings, the cuttings, what they could scoop up with a shovel, along with all the stuff that you don't think's in your food, but it's in there. And you'd haul out of the place, pizza toppings for Pizza Hut and Domino's, and hamburger patties for McDonald's and Carl Jr. and Whataburger and all of them, because they're all doing the same shit. And that's basically that pink slime they're talking about.
For the McDonald's chicken McNuggets, yeah.
Well, for their hamburgers, for everything. If someone out there's pulled a reefer, you'll know what I'm talking about. And they're so bloody and the floor's so wet with blood and everything. Every time you even ease to a stop, and because they just put them on the floor and they space them out. They're not touching each other. They're spaced out for the weight so it can leave the plant. So by the time you get to where you're going, you're like 38, 39,000 on your drives, So it's just going to keep working forward every time you just touch that brake. So, but there's a lot of drivers who wouldn't realize that they're getting heavier. It's like, okay, if you pull a van, you should know how to load that trailer. You should hardly ever have to move your fifth wheel. You should know the weight of your product when you walk in. You should, tell them, hey, I'm here to pick this up. You confirm your product. Yes, we're picking that up. How are you loading it? Okay, it's on pallets, it's shrink wrapped. We're putting it in single, double all the way back. Or we're going to have a bulkhead in the front. Whatever. You should know how to load that trailer, appropriately for weight. And you will hardly ever have to slide your trailer, slide your fifth wheel, and you can look at your suspension gauge and you know right there where 34,000 is on your suspension gauge. And, I do the same thing with the tanker. I know where 34 is. A lot of times when I'm loading, I'm looking for 34 on my drives. That's what I'm looking for. I know right there, 65 pounds on my suspension gauge on that truck. That is 34,000 on my drives. You should be able to do that. The CAT scale is just a verification to make sure. If they don't have a scale where you're at. With the tanker, usually there's a scale where you're at, and you scale in and you scale out. It's like, okay, where do I go? There's a scale. You're a tanker. Just find the scale, go there. Someone will meet you there.
There's a lot of technology being used too, because right in 2012, 2013, 2014, even though it's 10 years ago now, a lot of these dairy farms were going direct load onto their trailers. They don't even have storage tanks anymore, and the milk runs through a glycol chiller, then runs through a meter onto the trailer, and it's calculated by pound through a meter. And they've gotten it down to where they can load these trailers down to within a 5 to 10 pound variant of what needs to be legal on the trailer.
Right.
It's insane. It's insane how technology does help in certain ways.
Oh yeah, it can definitely help. It's just one of them things. If you're a truck driver, you should know, because there's plenty of places you go that don't care about putting it on. The forklift driver, they have no idea how to load the trailer. Some of them are good; they know exactly what they're doing. Some of them aren't. But it's still your responsibility. Yeah, it's still your responsibility what goes on that trailer, how it goes on the trailer, how it's secured. And that's whether you got to end up, whether you got a tanker, whether you got a reefer, a dry van, whatever it is, that is still your responsibility. You're the one pulling it down the road. And it's just, once you get used to it, you know how to load that trailer. It just is, So I have to hook up to different trailers all the time, and some of them are a little different because, like, the plate that's underneath on the tankers that the kingpin is attached to. Well,
Sometimes
you
they're
have
too far
holes in the
forward.
bottom.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. There's like, you'll see the holes on both sides of the trailer underneath it where that plate is attached to. Well, it might be one or two holes forward. It might be one or two holes back from the last trailer that you pulled. Because whatever company had that before you, they had it set up for their trailers. We're pulling old used stuff. So that's going to be the same as like if you moved a hole on your fifth wheel. It changes your weight around a little bit. So
Oh
you
yeah.
kind of get used to the equipment that the company you're with has, and what you can, how heavy you can load with what trailer. But that suspension gauge sort of nullifies that when you're loading, because, like I said, where 34,000 pounds is on that suspension gauge, and you're not going to go over it.
It's been a learning
You're
curve for
using
me for
that.
sure. With operating an end dump daily now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
back years ago on the farm, we had we had straight axle dump trucks. We had straight axle uh
Mm-hmm.
trailers. We had frame trailers that we dump our hay bales and stuff with. I mean, that was a whole different scenario, but it it, it got me kind of used to the box going up in the air. Well, operating as end dump for almost the last 10 months. There's still stuff that I'm learning because I I don't always load the same product every day or every other day. I'm learning
Right.
because there'll be times I'll load metal shredded scrap that it's aluminum scrap, and they have to pack the trailer slam floor to where I can barely get the bows back in the top, and it still
Mm-hmm.
won't be 44,000 pounds. Or if it's cottonseed, or if it's peanut hulls, or like if it's these metal plates I got, it ain't a lot, but it's in a it ain't a lot of the product, but it's in a smaller space, and still got plenty of room. So
Right.
this it
I don't know
definitely
how
it's
much.
definitely a learning it's definitely a learning curve.
I don't know how much longer the Instagram is going to be live, because I'm streaming through StreamYard, and Instagram has a tendency to cut off at about an hour. So if you're on Instagram and it cuts off, thank you so much for watching and happy Father's Day. But I'm going to let it play until it cuts off over there. Watch it with the claws.
So what's your alien's name? Your cat.
This
All
one,
cats are
this is
aliens.
Chloe. This is
All
Chloe.
cats are aliens.
She likes getting in the window beside me over here, and there's this tomcat that likes to walk across that fence. And when she gets a hold of that tomcat, one day she's going to hurt him.
Protecting her territory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
the only channel
you know,
mascot I got left.
Will Burner just went live, and I'm gonna have to go over there and represent and get some more money raised for Forgotten Angels, right?
Did not know that, but it's about time for me to go off because I was going to go for about an hour or so, anyways.
You going for a ride?
No, I'm not going for a ride right now.
Dang it.
I would love to get
Don't say-
this one in a harness and take her for a ride on the bike, but I think she would hurt me really bad. But
Strap a milk.
no, I gotta mow the grass.
Cage over the top.
Oh, Route 1 has a cage for pets that I can strap to my luggage rack on my lowrider. I've thought about doing that. I just have no money right now. I don't have money for, like, crap, so that's the economy. I'm making ends meet, it's just barely.
Take a couple milk crates and wire tie them together.
Maybe. But yeah, I was only gonna go for an hour or so because I gotta mow the yard and I gotta do a few other things and get ready because I've gotta be up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, as usual.
I gotta
What
wait
is
till
your
my 34's
problem?
up. That won't be till like 7 o'clock in the morning, so I'm good. So I appreciate everybody coming in and joining your chat and keeping us on our toes for this. I'm glad you had me on as a guest. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming
As
on.
always.
It's easier talking to somebody than it is talking to a microphone or a GoPro or what. I mean, I do it all the time. You know, I talk to a GoPro for an hour all the time. But if you have somebody, you know, to have an actual conversation with, it makes everything go a lot easier.
And time will fly by. And it's already been an hour.
Oh, I know. Also, if you go for too long, like once you get up there, like an hour and a half, stuff like that, it seems like I don't know if it's either people aren't willing to watch as long, or if the algorithm kind of ranks it down, or kind of a combination of both. If you can keep it an hour or under, it seems to do a little bit better.
And you
So,
helped me. You've helped me keep from smoking one of these for an hour.
well, good. Get on your bike more. That'll help you keep from smoking them, unless you're smoking somehow when you're riding.
Nah, my helmet. I got
Ah,
even
see?
though it's a 3-piece modular, it's a 3/4 with a detachable chin. I still ride with the chin plate in. So
I might get a modular next time, I don't know. But yeah, see, more reason to ride your bike. You can't smoke while you're riding, you
well,
know?
I try not to smoke too much anyhow. It does keep it. It's not an excuse. It does keep me calm. I don't like. I
For
don't like
truck
being.
drivers, it's
I don't.
really hard because of trying to stay awake. You're trying to keep your mind occupied, and it's that hand motion. That's something that you're doing with your hand. You're flicking an ash, you're using the ashtray, you're lighting a cigarette. It's one of them things that keeps you occupied to stay awake, and now you're addicted to the nicotine as well. But it's just one of them things. For it keeps you going. You know what I mean? You've driven longer
Well,
than me. You said you started in what, 92? 91?
91. I didn't go on the road.
Yeah.
I was. I run. I run wholesale. Straight trucks delivering to stores for the first 5 or 6 years. And I had to have my Class B for that. Yeah, I went
Mhm.
on the road like in 98, 97, 98. I went on the road.
Yeah, I got my CDL in 97, and I kind of bumped it up along the way, adding stuff to it. And
The only two
then,
endorsements, the only two endorsements I did not get on purpose was passenger and doubles and triples. I done that on purpose by design. Have no have no desire to be hauling more than 15 live bodies, human bodies that I'll be responsible for. And doubles and triples in the
mhm,
southeast is just not my thing.
right. I didn't go actually like over, I was regional, but I didn't go over the road until, what was it, 2003? You know, so before then I was regional, like Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and I stayed, you know, and
Over the
this, I
years,
would be considered over the road if it was East Coast.
over the years, we've probably crossed paths, probably been in the same truck stops over the years.
Probably. I'll run into you at some point. We crossed
All
paths a
right.
few times already. But go ahead and hop on
Did-
his chat. I'll talk forever. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end mine. So thank you everyone for watching on Rumble, on Instagram, on YouTube. You're all awesome. Thank you. This ended up being kind of a trucking chat, but I am a truck driver and a lot of my followers are also truck drivers. So I will catch y'all later. You are all awesome. And I am going to hit this little button up here in the corner. So,
like
bye.
Sterling says, make things go away. See ya.